So we will start with, there's not a ton new with COVID this week, unless the, death of 2,575 people just this week is newsworthy, which, is completely not mentioned on any corporate news, legacy media, nowhere. It's just like living with it, losing almost 10,000 people in the month of January. That's where we are right now.
I think we're getting to the point, though, where it's starting to affect people. Like, they're starting to see it around them. Like, oh, yeah. I mean, not to be bleak, but I lost a cousin, and the guy, his dad died. So wait, I lost a cousin who was 60-ish, and the father lost the wife of him. So anyway, two people died of mysterious unknown heart problems in the same family in the week. Like, neither had COVID.
When was that, Pat?
What's that?
When?
Just one of them was yesterday. One of them was
gosh.
So yesterday they lost.
So sorry.
Well, yesterday they lost the cousin, and then the dad, who is still existing, who lost his son, lost his wife yesterday. And they're both labeled as COVID, who knows, heart stuff, but it's really, it's peculiar. So my point is, not to be morbid about this,
right?
But I think it's hitting home to a lot of people how many family and friends are mysteriously just dying and early and without cause. And the dots are starting to connect for people, I hope.
I hope so too. I mean, that's horrible. And what an awful way to have to arrive at that connection. And the other part of it is where we keep being told, and I know we've all talked about this ad nauseum now for almost 4 years, but they only really talk about deaths, which is horrifying. And that's certainly, worth lots of mentioning, but that's not the only bad result from having COVID. And, many of us go on to have long COVID, and many of us don't even know if we will end up with long COVID, because as we, read last week, you don't ever get rid of it. It's not, your body, it's in your tissues and your organs. They find it there years later. So
it's doing organ damage to everybody on some level. And who knows what the real outcome is 10 years from now, but we're seeing the death tolls increase. And everybody just seems to think, well, I survived the acute phase, because that's what they think COVID is. It's just, you get it, you get COVID. It was bad, but I got through it. That's it. And in reality, obviously, we all know that that's not it. And these, most people think long COVID is just some sort of like anomaly that a few people are going to get, if they believe it at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was some good news. This guy's not a hero by any means.
Not at all.
But the health secretary, I forget his name, but
Becerra.
I don't remember. Anyway, he actually defended the CDC's COVID isolation guidance that was shortened to 5 days. But he's actually calling for the public now to take COVID seriously. Wow.
Right. So he's responding to California making it a 1-day isolation period, which is ridiculous. This feels a lot to me like the $15 minimum wage, though. It's like 5 days is way too short, right? 5 days is way too short. And that now, because, what's his name? Biden listened to the head of Delta.
The planes. Yeah.
The Delta CEO. I'm so sorry, Jessica. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not even getting, I'm seeing people write the most tragic things. And I'm so sorry because I'm not able to respond properly, but I just want you to know how sorry I am, but I'm not going to keep putting it up because I feel like I'm not addressing it with the proper response. So I'm sorry. It's just awful. But it's like the $15 minimum wage, where that's not a living wage. A living wage is like $27 an hour right now. So then when Biden is saying he's going to fight for it and then allows the parliamentarian to say no, then we're all stuck in a position where it's like, God, we really needed that $15 minimum wage, and we're fighting over, like, it's not even a compromise. It's, so if this feels a little bit reminiscent of that to me, where it's like, he's going to defend the 5-day one, which is going from 10 to 5 and actually doing anything apart from saying, do not come back in public until you test out. You get paid sick leave, like all of those measures that should have been put in place that were stripped away. And now we're like, oh, if only we could have the 5-day one, which wasn't sufficient.
It is absurd. I'm going to take it as a small win, even though it's not, obviously. Yeah. But look, everybody says that Biden can't do anything here. That's the defense the liberals will give you. And like, well, politically, it's a death wish, or he doesn't have power. They don't hold the. He has supreme authority over health issues in a pandemic. Like, there's no stopping what he could do via executive order in this situation. Lila, you're frozen.
God.
Whoa, don't look at me. But Biden could do, he can enact all kinds of, he has tremendous power to protect our citizens without waiting for Congress and the Senate to act, especially in a pandemic. They're explicitly laid out for him. So that argument is just very weak. And, there's no leadership on COVID on any level. They've just pretended it doesn't exist. And in fact, the balls of these people, part of Biden's strategy is to run on being post-pandemic now, like that he got us through this time. And do you want to risk going back to Trump, like as if Trump somehow botched COVID and he didn't? And, meanwhile, let's look at the numbers here. They're awful. We've got freaking 248,000 new cases a day. We were at 2 million. I mean, we probably still are at 2 million.
Yeah. How can they even tell that, right? Like, I think that's way low.
This is not the wastewater reporting, probably, is my estimation.
Well, and the wastewater is a little bit of a lagging indicator, and most people who are testing aren't doing official tests, PCR tests with their doctors, right? So
exactly,
they've taken away all the data. I mean, if Trump did this when Trump suggested, like, oh, if we stopped testing, we wouldn't have cases, everybody made fun of him.
Right. And I mean, all you have to do if you're running against Biden is say, look, you're Fauci, who worked under you. He worked under both, but Fauci, who said 10,000 cases a day is when we could feel okay about this. Like, so even in these terrible, inaccurate numbers, we're at 248,000. So, that's exponentially off of the 10,000 where we're supposed to say we're post-pandemic.
Yep.
So if you're running against him and you're Trump, who knows where Trump goes with this, but he could use this against him and point out the actual data.
I mean, he will, and he'll be right to, and he'll say, listen, I did Operation Warp Speed. I handed you the vaccines. There's been no real improvement on the vaccines, honestly. We see that here's the vaccines. This is where they came in February 2021. And that graph, that huge spiking, blue line is COVID deaths. So it did not, and I am not an anti-vaxxer, and they decided that saying you still had to use non-pharmaceutical interventions would be somehow anti-vaxxer. That's why one of our shows has been blacked out by YouTube. We've fought against it, but medical misinformation, because we said you still need to wear masks after Biden and Dr. Jill said, rip off your mask and smell that sweet, sweet air. So there's never been a pandemic that's been solved by vaccine only. It's just impossible.
Yeah. But it's strategically, the public has been misinformed by Biden. That's the bottom line. So, you look at the vaccines, that's, this person shared it. The tweet was that they shared it with a friend who thought the pandemic was over when they got the vaccines. And sadly, that's a lot of the goddamn public. And then the other piece is that people think, well, it's kind of like, it's about like the flu. We're living with it now, about like the flu, 20 to 40 times more deadly. And that's just pretty much the acute phase, because they're not really tracking what long COVID is doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I just want to say on the vaccine itself, even like Biden he celebrates a win because they got jabs in arms, But if you look at the trajectory when Trump ramped up the project, like, what was it?
Operation Warp Speed.
Of course, it was Operation Warp Speed. Because it sounds like a Spaceballs kind of thing or something.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just ridiculous. But the trajectory he put the country on, it didn't change. It's not like suddenly Biden got in and, ooh, it all changed. He actually got the system up and running. It was on pace. It expanded on the same pace that Trump was expanding it.
Yeah.
So claiming that as a win is just stupidity.
It is 100% stupid, and it's gone down. Like, people getting boosters. I mean, like, the numbers under 25 are, I mean, I think it might even be single digits, but even just the regular boosters, like, they've done such a poor job.
He has turned the country against vaccine science in general. And
Measles,
sure, a lot of this is
TB.
A lot of this is led by the right wing, but there's no counter to their messages because he's pretending none of this exists.
Right.
That leaves a void. And the only science out there is the junk science that people like Jimmy Dore and the right wing people latch onto and spread.
100%. And, you know, the politicization of it all. Yeah, the TB problem. I mean, it's crazy. But the politicization started under Trump, with Democrats saying, I don't think I'm going to trust that vaccine. You know, we have several prominent Democrats, including the president and vice president of the United States, in November of 2020, saying they weren't sure they were going to trust a Trump-made vaccine. And then as soon as Biden came in, they said, yeah, trust it. And then, so already that's just pitting everybody against each other. But then, yes, crucially important would have been to say, as they all knew, as anybody who is in medicine or studies this knows, there is no way to solve this vaccine only. They said it under Trump. And then they just shut up under Biden. So follow the science.
Yep. And I just want to point out that, look, the scientists were never saying that this vaccine is our only answer to this. The scientists were not. It was the politicians that made all the false claims. Yep. And I'll put Fauci in that level too. He's a scientist, but they made a lot of false claims about the efficacy of the vaccine. And that has hurt science a lot. But most of that rhetoric came from politicians. So like when people accuse us of being scaredy cats and whatever they want to say about us being sheep, we're listening to science. I'm not listening to politicians. You're the people listening to the politicians thinking you're safe. You are the sheep.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny that anybody says like, oh, take your mask off, you sheep. And the looks I get and people making fun of me and telling me I'm paranoid or whatever, you know, it's like, I'm the only person anywhere we go who's wearing a mask. So yeah.
Yeah. Like I just flew to Utah, and granted on the flight there were 3 masks, which is pretty pathetic, but I thought there were only
3 people on board.
And there were 2 people came on late that had masks.
Yeah.
One with a baby, toddler, 2-year-old, and they weren't masked. I don't know. It might be impossible to mask a 2-year-old. Yeah. I don't know. I'll give her a pass on that. But literally no one on the flight back. So how am I the sheep when I'm the one out of 300 on a plane? I don't know.
Yeah, like getting kind of like nasty looks from people too.
Right, like I'm the sheep, really.
Yeah,
I think I'm the one that has some balls. And
or a really big vagina.
But
a really big vagina. Grow a vagina and put on a mask. Just reminding everybody, sorry, and thank you. Someone in the chat just reminded, please make sure to like and subscribe and smash that notification bell so that when we do random shows on a Sunday, you can you'll all know. Devin, no, I'm kidding. He wrote and said, Well, I
was just gonna say that we have a different person for worst of the week, but COVID related. This is our COVID related worst of the week guy right here. Is that showing on screen for you right now?
It is not. Do you want me to put it up? I'm putting it up. Okay. David Sedaris, who we also had before we were doing this as a, worst of the week segment, he was the one who said he just went back to, he literally said, I went back to sleep once Biden came into power and didn't care that, Biden was doing everything Trump was doing. But anyway, this is his piece from the 22nd. So what are we, that was last Monday or something in the New Yorker. talking about one of his oldest best friends, one of Dawn's lungs collapsed when she was in her late 50s. So she was super cautious about COVID, kept her face covered long after everyone else had returned to normal. We were in Chicago together at O'Hare in the spring of 2022 when I told her she needed to take it off. But she said, let it go. I told her, everyone else has. I felt like a director coercing an actress to unhook her bra for a sex scene. Come on, I said, you can do this. Start by just lowering it to your chin. She took off her mask and then, of course, immediately got COVID. A bad case, too. All my fault, but she's never held it against me. There are so many disgusting aspects, actually, to that piece, like layers of it. Layers.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that she's never held it against him, that's his opinion. Yeah. I kind of think she probably does, and he's probably in a position of power, and it's not like he
gets to narrate the story.
She's gonna rip him apart and miss I don't know, any benefits of his social stature. I mean, who is he to say that? But I mean, I appreciate him putting it out there so bluntly, but he should say, and then I learned my lesson and I'm not such a piece of shit now.
Yeah, he should say something. You know, I read that whole piece, and there are other parts, because he's talking about her in this piece, and how strange she is, and a little off-putting and really weird. And so I made her test as an adult to see if she had autism.
Right.
It was like, I mean, it was so tone deaf to, like, I guess that would have been, you know, considered humorous 30 years ago to make fun of, you know, to be ableist like that. But like, it's 2024. We don't do that. We don't body shame. We actually kind of don't make fun of that sexual pervy director thing like that. I don't know. And I don't mean to take away like all humor, but when you write it down, when it's not off the cuff, and that's like a piece in the New Yorker, I don't know. That was revealing on many levels that were really disgusting to me.
Yeah. Okay. We have a little bit more on COVID, but I think we should probably just move on to keep the show flowing a little bit. I did want to point out, excuse me, one positive thing here that is informative somewhat. Michael Mina shared this.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a site, testtotreat.org, where anyone in the U.S. 18 and older can enroll and get telemedicine and treatment for free. If the treatment, if prescribed, can be delivered to your door and will be entirely paid for by the program. No copays. So please take that web address down if you have friends that are in need, or if you forget, just DM me or something and I'll find it.
Yeah, testtotreat.org. I signed up for that and got tests, but then I don't know. I didn't follow through, and maybe that was after, but I did get 4 free tests a while ago. Anyway, it's worth a shot. I know people are writing online right now, like people in their 70s are writing that they're not being prescribed Paxlovid. So I guess try that and see if you have better luck with it.
And Paxlovid, like as your doctor told you that for you, that wasn't the best treatment necessarily.
Right. And then I had to fight hard
or something.
No, that actually their finding is really bad.
Oh.
Paxlovid is still the only one. No, it was metformin, which Dr. Howard advised me to take. And there were all these studies in the Lancet and science journals that said it decreases your occurrence of long COVID by 60%. And then, of course, of the 3 of us in my house at the time who had COVID, I was the only one whose symptoms persisted for like 2 months. And my son and husband were done after just a few days. But anyway, I did take it. But I guess I had to fight with my doctor and with the pharmacist. It was days of fighting. It was ridiculous.
Well, who knows? Right. But, you know, there's a possibility that the fact that you had a longer reaction and whatever and you took the metformin could be good for you, honestly, when you think of long COVID, because that could have been you clearing out some of the, you know, I mean, who knows?
I like that.
You just
I like
don't
that
know.
thought. Yeah.
But anyway, listen to the doctors, research as much as you can, but there's a site that may potentially help some people.
Yeah, 100%.